Hi everybody, welcome to the Wandering Poet Cafe. Today we have a poetry lesson for you about sonnets, specifically the English sonnet form. So I'm going to start by reading for you a classic by Shakespeare. When to the sessions of sweet, silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hid in death's dateless night, and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell over the sad account of forebemoaned moan, which I new pay as if not paid before. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored, and sorrows end. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at some of the formal components that make up a sonnet and then analyze how they're used here in this example by Shakespeare. So Shakespeare's sonnets are written predominantly in a meter called iambic pentameter. They have a rhyme scheme in which each sonnet line consists of 10 syllables. The syllables are divided into 5 pairs called iambs or iambic feet. An iamb is a metrical unit made up of one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable. An example of an iamb would be goodbye, with the emphasis on by. A line of iambic pentameter flows like this: ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And this is basically in English, this is the type of meter most associated with the common rhythms and length duration of human speech, and so Shakespeare wrote a lot of his plays as well as all of his sonnets in iambic pentameter, right? And the penta on pentameter means 5. So you've got 5 feet of iambs, so 5 iambs, and since each iamb is 2 syllables, it's a line of 10 syllables. So every line in Shakespeare's sonnets will be 10 syllables. You know, maybe there's one here and there that is 11 or 12, but for the most part they're all going to be in 10 syllables. So here are some examples from Sonnet 12. When I do count the clock that tells the time. Or Sonnet 29, when in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state. Now in that one, I would say the first line really doesn't follow the I am pattern very well, but the second line does. I all alone beweep my outcast state. And then, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. So that's the most famous sonnet, Sonnet 18. That one also I don't think really follows the iambs too closely. And when you read poetry, you'll discover that the meter, when there is meter, is really more of a guideline rather than, strictly speaking, you're going to read every line like that. But bottom line, right, a sonnet is 14 lines, and they're all in iambic pentameter. So then, in addition, the sonnet form features 3 quatrains and a couplet. Okay, and that's the 14 lines. Quatrains are 4-line stanzas. A couplet is 2, so it's 4, 8, 12. 13, 14 lines. And the rhyme scheme, it goes like this: A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. So if we go back to our example with when to the sessions of sweet silent thought, if you read just those final lines, thought, past, sought, waste. So in that case, past and waste are supposed to rhyme. You know, they really don't, but Shakespeare's fudging it with that one. But thought and sought, right? So it's A, B, A, B. Because A rhymes with A, B rhymes with B, and then it gets to C, D, C, D, flow, night, woe, sight, G, F, G, F, or rather E, F, E, F, which is, then can I grieve, or sorry, I'll just read the last line, gone, over, moan, before, and over is made to or, so before, or, gone, moan, again, it's not a great rhyme, and then the final couplet rhyming, which is the G, G, and that is friend and end. So that's the rhyme. So whenever you see rhyme scheme in a poem, it's always the way the final syllable of each line rhymes, the end rhyme. Okay, back to the analysis here. The couple plays a pivotal role, usually arriving in the form of a conclusion, amplification, or even a refutation of the previous 3 stanzas, often creating an epiphanic quality to the end. All right, and so there's going to be a turn here, and let's get to that now, called a volta. Since the sonnet presents an argument, observation, question, or some other answerable charge, so in other words, it's almost like a thesis statement, like he's presenting an essay, like an argument in the sonnets, there's going to be a turn, or the volta, and again, just like it said, it's after either the first, second, or third quatrain, and that marks a shift in the direction of either the argument, or the narrative, or the question, whatever the sonnet is tackling. And it turns the remainder of the poem into a counter-argument or a clarification, or whatever answers the poem demands. So if we look back to our example here, when to the sessions of sweet silent thought, this is basically an entire poem where Shakespeare, or the poet, is sitting and just remembering the past and feeling all of these feelings of longing and, all of the losses that he's had, the grievances he's had, the moaning. So it's like, sitting and kind of wallowing in negative thoughts and reminiscences. And then in this poem, the volta, or the turn, is right before the final couplet, so it's after the third quatrain, or line 12. And so the final couplet now basically refutes or counter-argues the entire rest of the poem, because it says, "But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end." So it was this whole thing where he's going on about his losses and sorrows, and then he says, "But if I think on my friend, those go away." So he refutes the entire basis of the argument of the poem. And so that's not only kind of the themes and the structure of a sonnet, but it's how the form lends itself to exploring these types of themes. I also did a poem on the channel, the last video from last week. I read another Shakespeare sonnet getting ready for this video, which is "My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun." And that one is all about how his mistress, she's not like classically beautiful. She doesn't compare to all these different things, right? She's nothing like the sun. But then again, in the final couplet, he's like, "But I still think our love is rare," as any she, made false metaphors and comparisons about. And so again, the final couplet refutes the rest of the poem. So that's a common way he does it, but it could come earlier in the poem as well, after one of those first or second quatrains. Okay, so now here is a writing prompt that you can use when you're teaching sonnets, and if you want to use sessions of sweet silent thought as your example. You're going to have students identify the theme of that sonnet. How do Shakespeare's choices and the sonnet form, which includes the structure, the pacing, parallelism I didn't talk about right now, but I'll get to it, author's point of view, how does that all contribute to developing the theme? Include topic, sentence, text, evidence, and closure, especially if you're doing with high school students. They do need that kind of specific guidelines. But this would be a great lesson for undergrad or upper level high school. And so this is asking you to look at the formal requirements of a sonnet form and see how does it contribute to the meaning or the theme through the author's choices. And that's basically the gist of an English sonnet. Now, if you guys want to see me do the Italian form of the sonnet in another video, let me know in the comments below. I'm also going to keep making more lessons for high school and undergrad poetry lessons, and every week there will be a new poem with musical background and all that recorded, performed, recited, and put on the channel. So if you're interested in all that, leave a comment, subscribe so you can keep up to date, and we'll see you next time.